everybody, and welcome to another episode of HSP TV. So, today is HSP TV episode 62, and I'm going to be talking about the spiritual law of sowing and reaping. I want to talk about it today because it is a law that changed my life forever. And I learned about it through one of an inspirational audiobook by Mr. Rohn. And in the law of sowing and reaping is also the story of the law of averages. The law of sowing and reaping is a basic principle that governs what you will receive from life. And the origin is from the Bible, but it has many parallels to the law of attraction as it explains what it takes to succeed in life. And the law basically means that whatever you sow, you shall reap. And to explain this law better, I want to tell you the story of the sower. And the story comes from the Bible, and I am an amateur on the Bible. But this is such a useful story that I want to share it with you anyway. So I'll do it in my way and how I want to talk. So that might not be something that you might recognize, but I hope you will appreciate my version of it. And here's what the story says. And I would encourage you to take notes because the drama is in the details. So firstly, the sower was ambitious. When you hear the whole story, you'll conclude, yes, this was an ambitious sower. Secondly, the sower had excellent seed. The sower who sowed the seed had excellent seed. And that excellent seed could be an excellent opportunity or an excellent product or even an excellent story. So we've got an ambitious sower with excellent seed. Now, let me tell you the rest of the details of the story. The first part of the story tells you that in order for the sower to reap the rewards of his harvest, he must start with good seed. And this simply means that you must have a good idea, a good product, or a worthwhile goal that you set your sights on. As long as you have a worthy goal and a firm belief in it, the rest of the process will unfold naturally. So the sower goes out to sow the seed, but the first part of the seed falls by the wayside and the birds get it. So write this down. The birds are going to get some of the seed. But Barbara, you might think, what does that mean? Why are you telling me this? Well, when you first start sowing, some of your seeds will fall to the ground before you plant it. And as the seed falls by the side of the road, the birds will come and get some of the seed. At this point, you could decide to go chase the birds. You could fight to get every scrap of seed back. But this is a waste of time and of effort. Instead, simply accept that the birds will get some of the seed and move on. Because if you chase the birds, you will leave the field. Okay, Barbara, I hear you, but what does that mean? I'm still confused. Well, let me explain it a bit further with a real life example. Mr. Rohn, one of the greatest inspirational speakers of the last century and a big inspiration for today's talk, talked about John. He invited John to come to a meeting with him. And John said that he would be there Tuesday night. Tuesday night, Mr. Rohn shows up and John isn't there. He thinks to himself, I wonder why John didn't make it. And now you know the answer. The birds. It was the birds. John had this great idea of coming to the meeting to look at an opportunity. And somebody stole it and said, you're not going to go to that network marketing meeting. And John says, well, maybe not. So did you write that down? The birds are going to get some of the seeds. Now, when the birds get some, you've got two options. Like I said before, number one is to chase the birds. And you say, well, let me get hold of the person who talked him out of coming to the meeting. I'll tear them a new one. Personally, I wouldn't do that. Because here's what happens if you go chasing birds. You leave the field. If you go chasing the birds now, then you will stop sowing because you're leaving the field. And this is going to detract you from your future. It's not going to add to it. So you can't chase the birds and try to straighten this stuff out. Here's what it is. It's just one of those things. And here's the best comment when things are a little disappointing. You just simply say, well, isn't that interesting? You just have to say to yourself, I thought for sure he would be here. He promised me. But I know it was the birds. And then you just have to say, well, isn't that interesting? Okay, Barbara, you might think, it sounds interesting and all, but what has that got to do with being successful? Well, the story tells us that the sower kept on sowing. So that was the secret to his success. He kept on sowing. And if you keep sowing, you can sow more than the birds can get, because there aren't enough birds for all the seeds that you have. So if you just keep sowing, there will always be some birds, but never enough, because the law of averages will work for you. Mr. Rohn taught me, you know that there are only 9 or 10 really nasty, miserable people in the whole world. And now you know they move around a lot, and you're liable to bump into one every once in a while. But when you bump into one, you just say or think to yourself, there's only 9 more like you in the whole world. I can handle that. So now, here's what else the story says. The sower keeps on sowing the seed. When you accept that the birds will get some of the seed and you decide to keep on sowing, you move on to the next stage of the metaphor, the rocky ground. Now the seed falls, the story says, on rocky ground where the soil is shallow. And the rocky ground where the soil is shallow is not of your making, because you had excellent seed and you were an ambitious sower. So at this stage, some of the seeds get into the ground, and it can even begin to sprout a little. This is your first sign of progress. It is the first clue that you are beginning to turn nothing into something. But here is what it says happened. This time, the little seed that falls in the ground starts to grow, and the little plant starts to grow. But the first hot day, it shrivels up and dies. And that's not an easy thing to watch. Okay, Barbara, I hear you think, but how does that help me? My results did not amount to anything. Good question. So let me explain further. Mr. Rohn finally gets John started. And sure enough, 3 or 4 days later, somebody says, boo, and John's gone. He doesn't show up for your second meeting. And Mr. Rohn says, I thought for sure John would last a week. What happened? So write this down. The hot weather is going to get some. And this is not of your making. Here's what you must say when that happens. Well, isn't that interesting? Okay, Barbara, you might think, but how can I do that? What can I do about that? Because I don't want this to happen. And, I understand where you're coming from. But the answer is nothing. You say, well, I'm going to try and change this. But again, your best response is simply to accept that some things just don't stick. You will lose some customers. Some great ideas won't pan out. But what's most important is that you keep on sowing. Now, here's the secret to the ambitious sower with the good seed. Can you guess? He keeps on sowing. And in order to keep on sowing, Mr. Rohn says you must learn to discipline your disappointment. This is a key phrase now to use for the rest of your life. You must learn to discipline your disappointment because you didn't set up the setup. And some are just not going to stay. And that's not of your making, that's not of your doing. But if you make errors, if you make gross errors, and if you run them off, well, see, that'd be different because then you'd be responsible for that. But if it's just the normal course of things, then, that's just the way things are. Don't get upset about things that you cannot change because some things sometimes just don't work out. And you need to accept them. You need to accept that. And you need to move on. So here's what the story says. The sower keeps on sowing. Now the story says, the seeds fall on thorny ground. Okay, Barbara, you might say, how much of this do I have to go through? Well, hang on. We're not at the end of the story yet. So at this point in the story, the little seed falls on a thorny ground. And once again, the plants start to grow. But once again, the little plant dies early because the thorns choke them to death. So write this down. The thorns are going to get some. And that's not of your making. Okay, Barbara, but what do you mean by that? What are these thorns? Well, these thorns are little obstacles that get in your way. They are the slight setbacks, the stories you tell yourself, and the mindset that small things will cheat you out of big opportunities. And to illustrate what I mean with that, I'll continue with the story of John. Mr. Rohn called John and he told him, John, we had a meeting last night and you weren't there. And John says, well, I can't make every meeting. And Mr. Rohn says, well, why not? You're part-time. And John said, well, the screen door came off its hinges and you can't just let the house fall apart. So, you've got to take the time and fix things up. And you can just kind of hear the thorns growing. John said some extra trash had piled up in the garage, and you can't let mountains of trash take over. You've got to keep your trash hauled out. What I mean by that is that people let little things cheat them out of big opportunities, and you will feel almost helpless. What could I do about that? And again, the answer is nothing. And you will say, well, why is this? And I wouldn't go down that road. I would never ask, why did these happen? Why is this happening to me? Why are they behaving like that? Just leave the why thing alone because, it's just the way it is. Like winter following fall and spring following winter. That's just the way life works. So, did you get that? The thorns are going to get some. And again, Mr. Rohn says that the best response isn't to worry about it. Don't try to figure out why the thorns come. Just accept it, move on, and keep on sowing. Okay, Barbara, I get it, but is there also some good news in this story? Yes. So here's the good news. At the end of the story, the seed finally falls on good ground. And the sower now keeps on sowing the seed. He keeps on sharing the story, keeps on giving invitations to people. And finally, the seed falls on good ground. Now put this in parentheses. It always will. If you just keep on sowing, if you share a good idea long enough, it will fall on good people. If you keep on going, you will get to good ground. You will get to the point where your effort begins to pay off and you will begin to reap the results that you've desired. The important point to know is that if you keep on sowing, you will always, always, always reach the good ground. But there is still another lesson here. Some of the good seeds will stay and only yield 30% or 60% of what they are capable of, while others will reach 100% and be just an amazing success. And you might be tempted to step on the Y train again. But don't board it, please, because that's just the way it is. Again, don't waste your time trying to figure it out. Just keep on sowing. Mr. Rohn said, I tried to get the 30s to do 60. And I found out that that was just more than I could handle. He used to say, I'll make them useful, I make them successful if it kills me. And he almost died. So no, you cannot do that. But here's what you can do. Let the 30s be 30 to the best of their ability, because that's how they build their lifestyle and get what they want out of life. And let the 60s be 60, and let the hundreds be hundreds. These simple ideas form the law of success. Keep on sowing and you are bound to reach your goal. Just don't worry about the upsets along the way. Spiritual laws, like any other laws, will work for everyone under the right conditions. And when you fulfill its terms, it will produce results for you, guaranteed. And life is about sowing and reaping. It's all about your seeds. So think of this, and if you would, share it with me in the comments below. What kind of seeds are you sowing? What kind of seeds are you sowing? Are you sowing thistle seeds? Are you sowing rosebud seeds? Are you sowing basil seeds? Are you sowing broccoli? Or are you sowing thorny bushes? What seeds are you sowing? Because your life is like a field or a garden, if you please. And every day you are sowing seeds in that field, whether or not you realize it. And your thoughts are your seeds. Your words are your seeds. So whatever becomes of your life, whatever becomes of you, is first sowed in your mind and in your heart. And bad seeds produce bad fruits. So what thoughts dominate your mind every day? Are they positive or are they negative? I would love it if you would share it. What thoughts dominate your mind every day? What kind of seeds are you sowing? Positive ones or negative ones? Because negative thoughts lead to negative communication, which in turn leads to negative actions. And you manifest to the outside world that which is within you, that with which is inside you. So if you have positive thoughts, then inevitably they will lead to positive communication, positive actions, and positive results. You manifest to the outside that which is inside of you. In conclusion, I want to leave you with these other interpretations of the law of sowing and reaping. Some of them were really eye-opening for me. So another way to interpret the law of sowing and reaping will be whatever you sow, you shall reap. Whatever you sow, you shall reap. So whatever you plant is what you will get back. Don't try to beat that. If you plant thistle seeds, don't expect pumpkins. And if you want pumpkins, then you need to plant pumpkin seeds. Another way of formulating this law is whatever you reap is what you have sown. If you don't like your crop, to whom do you turn? Who's responsible for the crop? Yes, the sower. And where do you find the sower? You need to look in the mirror. That is where you find the sower. So if you don't like the results, then look at the seeds that you are planting. Look at the seeds that you are sowing. Look at your thoughts. What thoughts dominate your mind? What kind of seeds are you planting? I'd also like to share with you 7 key points about the law. The first one I want to share with you is the law is negative. If you sow bad, you reap bad. So if you plant thistle seeds, you don't get pumpkins. Honest. You will get thistles. So there's no use in looking for pumpkins if you are planting thistle seeds. But the law is also positive. That's the second key. If you sow good, you reap good. So if you plant pumpkin seeds, you will not get thistles, not from pumpkin seeds. Mother Nature wouldn't do that. If you plant pumpkin seeds, you will get pumpkins. The third key is you do not reap what you sow, but rather you always reap much more than what you sow. So the key word is more. You don't get back what you put out. You get back much, much more. But be careful because the law works both positive and negatively. So on the negative side, it says, if you sow to the wind, you will get back whirlwinds. And you got to get ready for that, or you will be naive. But the law also works positive. If you plant a cup of corn in the spring, what will you get back in the fall? If you plant a cup of corn in the spring, tell me in the comments, what do you think you will get back in the fall? And it's not a cup. You might as well keep the cup you've got, if that is what you would get back. Because why go through all the trouble of planting your cup of corn in the spring, watering it, taking really good care of it all summer, looking after it carefully, crossing your fingers and pray? Why go through all of that? The reason is that come fall, you will probably get a bushel for a cup. A bushel for a cup. It's called one of life's better deals. The cup will grow out into much, much more than the corn was in the cup when you sowed it. If you figure out how that works, you could get rich. So why aren't more people wealthy? The answer is that they don't study sowing and reaping. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because it's so important for the results that you are seeing in your life. The fourth key I want to share with you is there are many ways to sow and reap. There are many ways to change your life. There are many ways to get promoted. There are many ways to move up. There are many ways for financial independence. There are so many ways to do well, especially in this country. You don't have to go without any. There is too much information, too many courses, too much capital, too many sources in this country to not do well. So find a way. There are plenty. Key number 5 is anyone can sow and reap, and anyone can. The question is whether or not you will. If you can is not the question, but if you will is. So anyone can, but the question is who will. Key number 6 is, and I'm going to be really honest here with you today because I believe in full transparency and honesty. Key number 6 is you could lose. There are times that you lose no matter what you do. It's just that kind of planet. You reap what you sow. Yes, but. And what does that mean? The farmer plants his crop in the spring. He takes care of his crop all summer long. He loves his family. He works 10 to 12 hours every day. He works 6 to 7 days a week. He is an honorable man. And come fall, he has a beautiful crop and he deserves every bit of it. But the day before he sends the combines into the field, a hailstorm comes along and it beats it all into the ground, which means you lose. Somebody says, well, what did he do wrong? And the answer, nothing. You know, it's just that kind of a planet. Sometimes it's going to hail on your crop and it's going to rain on your parade, and you've got to be ready for that. Otherwise, you will be naive. It's just a part of life's arrangement. And don't ask me why, because I wasn't there when this planet and life was created. Sometimes you just lose, even though you did nothing wrong. That's just part of life. But you got to keep on sowing. And the 7th and final key that I want to share with you today is, if you don't sow, you don't reap. You don't even have a chance. So if you look at your plan, you might come to the conclusion that you need to get yourself some sowing going on. And you're right. Just remember, you have plenty of time. You've all the time that there is. You might be thinking, no, Barbara, that's not true. I don't have time. I barely get to everything that I'm already having in my life. But everybody has the same 24 hours in their day. And there are people who are sowing and are reaping. So there is time. It's just a matter of priorities. And if this is something that you find to be a very big challenge in your life, then just please contact me, because I'm offering everybody that is watching this episode a free clarity call, a free call in which we can get clear on what is wrong with your sowing and reaping process and how you can improve upon that so that you can reap the things that you want to reap in your life. There is plenty of time and there are plenty of ways. So that means also for you, there are ways that you could be reaping what it is that you want to have in your life. And I would be honored if you would contact me and if I could help you figure out how you can achieve that. So, the message is simple. With ambition and excellent seed, which is your story, you just keep on sowing the seeds and you persevere. Determination, patience, and the law of averages will carry you past the birds and the weather and the thorns to harvest time. This is what I wanted to share with you today, because this is one of the biggest eye openers that really helped me change my life. It really helped me to start to attract more abundance in my life. I started to see what I was unconsciously doing that was not allowing me to reap the things that I wanted to reap. I was not sowing the right types of seeds, but I wasn't aware that I was doing that. So the first step into changing your results is becoming aware. And that's why I want to offer everybody this clarity session, because you need to become aware of your thoughts that are your seeds, that will be the results that you are reaping in your life currently. And if you don't like the results, then you need to go to the beginning point, and that is your thoughts, discover them, change them, so you will reap other rewards. And I would love to help you with that. So we've come to the end of the story, and I really hope that it was valuable to you. I hope that you learned something from it, and I would love it if you would share with me what is your biggest takeaway of this story, and what will be your number one action accordingly. So, what was your biggest takeaway from this, and what is your number one action that you are going to take? I see Reshma says, but when will it fall on good ground? Good. Could you give an example of 30, 60, 100? That was not clear to me. And rosebud, are those good seeds? Yes, well, let's start with the first one. When will it fall on good ground? It will fall on good ground the moment your thoughts are positive. Like attraction attracts like. So for it to fall on good ground, you need to keep sowing, keep working on yourself, keep working on your mindset, keep working on the vibration that you operate on, the level of which you operate. And vibration is everything vibrates on a certain frequency. And low frequencies will be things like worries and doubts and fears and anxieties. And high vibrations will be things like joy, happiness, trust, and inner peace. So the first thing to do is to start working on your thoughts, because your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings create your actions, and your actions create your results. So your thoughts are your seeds, and you want to plant the seeds that will get you the result that you want. So if you want pumpkins, then you need to plant pumpkin seeds. If you want roses, then you need to plant rose seeds. So that's your last question. Rosebuds, are they good seeds? That is dependent on you. If you love roses, and if you want to take care of roses, if rose would be an analogy for your ideal client, then yes, they are the most excellent seed you can get. So plant the rosebud seeds if that is what you wish to attract. And in order to do that, you must look at roses. What type of vibration do they have? What type of energy do they have? And can I match my thoughts? Can I match my mindset with that frequency so that I will attract those people to me? That is planting the right types of seeds by having the right mindset, because your thoughts trigger your feelings. If you are thinking positive thoughts like going on vacation or other things that make you happy, I'm already saying it. If you think those things, you will become happy because they're happy thoughts. And that will propel you to take the actions that will accompany those things, like going looking for a vacation, maybe even booking a vacation, going to the airport to go on vacation, actually taking the vacation, all the actions that come with the thought of I want to go on a vacation, feeling happy about the vacation, and then actually doing it. And your result will then be a wonderful vacation, because that is the whole process. That will be the result of your actions. So it also works in business. It works always like this. And an example of 30, 60, and 100, sometimes you have the positive thoughts and you are, how shall I explain? You're planting the pumpkin seeds, and the pumpkin starts to grow because it finally fell on the good ground, and it started to get out of the seed, and it started to become a little plant. But sometimes the plant is just not strong enough. Sometimes it might not grow the right types of roots, or sometimes it might have fallen into the shadow of another plant and it doesn't get enough sunlight. Yeah, there could be all kinds of circumstances that prevent the plant from growing into its full 100% blossomy state. And if those reasons are big enough, so it's really in the shadow of a big tree and it has fallen on sandy ground, and it is a plant that needs rich soil with lots of sunshine, it will not grow to 100%. But that's not of your making. That's not something you can do. Sometimes, and if you translate it to clients, sometimes clients think they will become a valid pumpkin thing, but they still have blocks or limiting beliefs or things that they haven't solved internally within them. So no matter how much you take care of them, no matter how much you nurture them, they will not blossom to the full 100% because it's just not possible. And that's the same for the 60. They have less obstacles than the 30, so they might not be in the shadow of the big tree, but they might still be in the sandy soil and not getting enough food. So it will also not grow into the perfect 100% pumpkin plant. It will grow to 60% of what it could be. It had a little bit less limiting beliefs, maybe it had already done the person has already done some inner work, maybe already healed some inner child things or cleared something in family lines or something. So they are further along than the 30%er, but there are still things in their energy field that prevent them from growing into this big plant. And that's also not of your doing. That's something that you don't have influence on unless you actually are a mindset coach or you help people overcome limiting beliefs, and they are aware of these beliefs and they are willing to work on it, then you might get them a bit further. But it's these types of things that determine if a seed will grow to a 30%, a 60%, or 100%. And most of the time we don't really have any influence over this. So it means that people are also very much responsible for their success. You can give them everything they want. They can give them everything they need to become the entrepreneur that they want. You can give them all the exercises and the tools, but if they don't work on their mindset, if they don't work on their energy field, if they don't start to vibrate on the vibration of love and faith and trust, but still are scared of some things or still are anxious about some things, then they will never grow to that 100%, no matter how much you do. And you need to be prepared for that. You need to know that that's not your fault. It's not of your making. It's not your doing. Sometimes that just happens. And it doesn't mean that you failed. It doesn't mean that you didn't succeed. You did the best that you could possibly do. And if they overcome these blocks that they have that prevent them from growing to 100%, they still have your teachings. So even later on, it will still enable them to grow to 100%, but they need to do the work. They need to do all the work involved of getting rid of the obstacles and frictions to success so that they can grow to that 100%. Did that make sense? I hope so. Awesome. I'm going to check if there are more questions on Facebook and see who is here. Hi, Maddie. So nice of you to join. I'm glad to see you here. I am live on 2 places, so I'm also going to go to the other protocol and see you don't have a question yet. So let's see if in the Soulpreneur group there is somebody that has questions. And if you're watching this in the replay, then it is possible to be live in this episode. I share the links, and you can be here live like Reshma is doing right now, and ask your questions straight up and get immediate answers. But I would also love it if you could let me know that you're watching this in the replay. I see that I do have viewers, but they have not asked questions yet in the group, which is perfectly fine. And Maddie only told me that she loved my episode. And I see that Sam was here. Hi, Sam. Thank you for being here and leaving your comment. So I don't think we have any questions at this moment, but if you're ever catching this in the replay, then please don't hesitate to ask your questions, because I will still answer them. And I really hope that this was a beneficial episode to you. And if you have any questions regarding this law or getting clear on your thoughts so that you can reap the things that you actually want to reap, have the results in your life that you truly want, or if you have any other questions, just feel free to book this free clarity call with me. I'll make sure that the link will be below this video or up or at the sides, wherever I can put it. And if you don't see see it, then just find me on social media under HSP Coach Barbara. I'm all major ones, and just send me a personal message, a direct message, or through Messenger, a message, WhatsApp, whatever way you can reach me. Just tell me that you want to talk, because I would love to help you move on and take the next step in your life. For now, I thank everybody that was here live and everybody that is asking questions. And I hope to see all of you again next week, when I will be talking about the 6 mental tools that we all have that will guarantee your success. Exciting stuff. So see you all again next week. Have a great rest of your day.